Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I have asked Mr. George Adams to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's board meeting. Let's see. We are going to start off with some information. This is our first regular meeting of the Kent School Board for the 2018-2019 school year. And this is a meeting of the board which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. As this is our first meeting of the new school year, we wanted to take a moment to review some of the board's key functions that are listed in Policy 1001, the key functions of the Board of Directors. All right. And so as trustees of the community schools, the board is responsible and accountable for the vision, the structure, the advocacy, and accountability. Specifically, the board's function lie in the following areas: adopting policy, planning and assessing short and long-term goals, authorizing and reviewing the district's strategic plan, acting as a liaison between the community and the district, hiring and evaluating the superintendent, advocating for students, the school district, and public education, approving a budget reflecting the priorities of the district and community through a responsible use of monies, and advocating for appropriate state and national educational policies and laws. So I would like to, at this time, go through the process of audience participation. We have a large crowd tonight, and there are many speakers. And so I'd like to mention that the purpose of the board meetings is for the board to conduct its business in public, and this is not a public forum. So those wishing to comment must complete a comment card with your name, address, and purpose, and give it to the board secretary before the meeting begins. So as soon as you can get it to Karen, that would be appreciated. So the comment cards will be accepted tonight until agenda item 3.01, which is the 2018-2019 budget public hearing. The board may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it's too lengthy, obscene, or irrelevant. And abusive public comments personally directed towards staff members will not be tolerated. The board as a whole will have a final decision in determining the appropriateness of all such rulings. And during the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to the comments from the visitors. When it is your turn to address the board, please state your name and address at the start of your testimony and identify any organization, if any, that you represent. Please limit your remarks again to 3 minutes, and you'll hear a timer when the 3 minutes are up. Visitors who have completed a comment card indicating a desire to speak to an agenda item will be given an opportunity to speak to the board at the time the item is addressed by the board, and your name will be called at that portion of the agenda. Written material should be submitted to the superintendent's office at least once, 1 week in advance of the meeting, when providing board members with background information per board procedure. Okay, so just wanted to go through the information that we typically provide, but in more detailed fashion, because this is the first meeting of the school year. All right, so at this time, I will ask Dr. Watts if there are any changes to the agenda, please.
Thank you, President Venkatachalam, members of the board, Ms. Halley. A supplemental personnel report was, in fact, added to the consent agenda, and the King County Athletic Grant was removed this evening. A printed copy of the supplemental personnel report is before you on the dais.
All right, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the change to the agenda and add the supplemental personnel report to the consent agenda, please.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, are there any discussions, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. We're up to 2.0 presentations. And we will call Mr. Ben Rarick and Lisa Tyler to present the information on our 2018-2019 budget presentation. Mr. Rarick.
I'll let you work with it.
Taking a while here, Karen. There we go. Second time's a charm. Good evening, board members. As you know, my name is Ben Rarick. I'm the Executive Director of Budget and Finance, and it's my pleasure to present to you the proposed 2018-19 budget for the Kent School Districts. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege and acknowledge the tremendous amount of work done by the team to my left. They are the staff that actually put together the documents that you have. It is a mountain of work. And I'd like to acknowledge Lisa Tyler, the Supervisor of Budget and Finance, and two members of her team, Sarah Dumlau and Allison Mans. Hours, months of work into the documents that you received today, and I think as you take some time to go through the budget book, you'll notice how much better organized it is, how much more accessible it is. It's a very nicely done document, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. It's a lot of work under a normal year, and it's particularly a lot of work under this year of what I'll call transition that we've been through. And I think that that's the sentiment I'd like to start tonight's presentation on, is that I think that this budget has some symbolic importance in that it does represent a transition for the district. In preparing for tonight, I had the opportunity to look back into some of our financial data and was reminded that, except for this year, which hasn't closed yet, the last time that the school district spent less than it took in, okay, think about that for a second. The last time that the school district spent less than it took in revenue was 2012-13. And so what we hope this transition point represents is a pivot away from annual structural deficits and a pivot towards long-term financial stability and sustainability, so that we don't repeat the year that we just went through and the challenges that our deficit created. So I'm hoping that this presentation will kind of outline that theme of sustainability. And to that point, let's go over some of the goals of tonight's presentation. There we go. First, I'll review a little bit of the process that the district and the board went through coming up till today. We'll review some of the major components of the budget proposal. Review some points of emphasis about, what are the values that are expressed in this budget document on behalf of the district, and finally answer any questions that you may have. When I'm done, Lisa is going to spend some time walking you through the various documents and tools that were developed for you. There are a number of them, and we hope that not only the board but members of the community will use them as well. Okay, reviewing the process here. For board members, this will just be a rerun, but in the interest of full transparency, I've listed all of the dates of the work sessions that the board undertook with regards to reviewing the budget and discussing it, as well as the work session we just had a few hours ago about the next planned bond sale and the impacts for the capital and debt service funds. Our Educational Service District was particularly involved this year, both in terms of tracking our current year status. So on June 20th, we had an update call with the Puget Sound Educational Service District, and then on July 23rd, we had our technical review. So once the district submits by July 10 its F-195 document, its preliminary document, they go through a technical review of that document, offer comments. And then, of course, on August 3rd and 10th, the first and second required legal notices of this meeting, and here we are on August 22nd to entertain this proposed budget. Okay. The first slide I'd like to go with you is what I call a fund summary. So going left to right on the top are the 5 funds of the district, and then going down the far left column just takes you from the beginning balance to ending balance with revenue and expenditure projections for each fund. And there's a few points I'd like to make with regards to this slide. 4 points, actually. The first point is, let's look at that number at the top left-hand corner of this slide. You see the $1.12 million, okay? So at the time that we produced this budget, that's where we projected to be. We're still pretty close to that. We still believe at this point we will finish the current fiscal year positive. And that's an important point going into 18-19. Point number 2, you'll see at the bottom of that column, general fund, a projected ending fund balance of $33 million. We've walked the board through, what does that mean? Why is that? And I want to reiterate this point about the long-term fiscal sustainability of the district's financial situation, given that our local revenue will be decreasing, and given that we may incur additional costs by state mandate in the future. So when we look at this fund balance, it isn't so much a one-year fund balance as planning for multiple years ahead, as perhaps we had hoped to do many years ago. The third point I'd like to highlight there is, you'll see under the capital projects fund column, a $78.23 million number. So that is the totality of the expense we would associate with the capital projects fund and the project list that you're also accustomed to seeing. Later in the presentation, I include that entire list so you can see all the projects that are slated for the coming fiscal year. And then finally, the last number there that I'd like to highlight is the $28.7 million under the debt service fund. This is apropos to the conversation we just had 2 hours ago. In terms of the amount that we sell on the second bond has some impact on the size of this debt service fund, and you may in fact be asked to revisit that if that amount is higher or lower when that number reveals itself in the fall. Okay. Next 2 slides are pie chart representations of our revenues and our expenditures in the district. Couple key points here. This budget represents a transition in a number of ways. One of them is it's the first post-McCleary budget. And so I want to note the fact that from here on out, not just Kent, but in most school districts become more and more reliant on state revenue and less reliant on local revenue. We hope that it results in an overall increase in funding, but it also impacts the flexibility of funds. Local revenue has been something the district has relied upon to fill the void of things that the state hasn't funded, but now more and more regulation on what we can spend with those local levy revenues, as well as the diminishing amount of them, presents a challenge for the district going forward. Okay, this is the expenditure side of the equation. Here again, I think this reflects the value that we not spend all that we take in, as we have established this pattern for many, many years before, and that we are planning for multiple years down the road. The one point that I would like to highlight here is that part of the state's increase in funding is comprised in this program. You see here the 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, compensatory education. I'll be getting into that a little bit later. Some of those programs have funding increases specifically targeted to students that, when we talk about the opportunity gap in our strategic plan, that there's a lot of real positive energy about investments we can make in those programs to address achievement gaps for students. Okay. I believe it was the chair has made oftentimes specific requests to see the budget broken by activity. So here is a depiction, and I'd like to show, I think, what is a meaningful trend here. You can see this both budget to budget. So you see in 4 columns here, 18-19 budget, 17-18 budget, and then the previous 2 are actuals. Okay, let's just start with teaching and teaching support, which is the top line. Notice that that percentage is going up as you move to the far right. Okay? Reflecting that a greater portion of our budget directed to programs and services under the broad heading of teaching and teaching support. Look down line 2 and line 3 representing school administration and central administration, and do that same look far left to far right, and you see a corresponding inverse relationship, right? You would expect that as your budget becomes more concentrated on teaching and teaching support activities, that administration will have reduced. Indeed, that seems to be the case, and that's not surprising given the rather significant central office overhaul that we undertook in the year just about to complete. Okay, here's a little more. I was asked specifically about wanting to see some of the detailed revenue lines, so this might be a little more detailed than you're accustomed to, but one of the board members asked for it. So you might want to take some time with this slide later, but I'll highlight 3 particular points here. You'll be able to identify the programs down the far left-hand column. Okay. We're talking about the compensatory education programs that have direct nexus to some of the student groups that we're really aggressively targeting for opportunity gaps. Looking at program 51, 55, and 65, that's Title I, which is a federal funding source. The Learning Assistance Program, which is a state funding source. And the Transitional Bilingual Program, particularly 55 and 65, those are pretty sizable increases in state funding in those programs. Those are the largest increases in those programs that we've seen from the state in quite some time. And so that's an encouraging message from the state that our focus is directed on that opportunity and achievement gap. Okay, the next slide represents the 195F, which is this new state requirement requiring a 4-year outlook. And this gets a little bit to the theme of not having a fund balance for 1 year, but having a fund balance for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. I think that this, again, as I've said, this budget represents a long-term, long-looked budgeting. And it plans for the fact that not in 1819, but in 1920, and follow me on this, please, because this is a key concept, our revenues will almost certainly go down, and our expenses will almost certainly go up. The amount of that won't be known until it's known, but just that fact alone should tell us that there's some long-term planning necessary. That's not a normal course of action, right? You would normally expect your revenues to at least go up a little bit, and your expenditures hopefully to go up in a commensurate manner. That is not the case next year. And so that is kind of a unique budget landscape to be aware of and plan for. So really, 4 years is a long time to plan, and we make every effort to do that. But each year that you draw back, you have greater degrees of certainty. And I'll say that absolutely, for long-term sustainability, we absolutely have to get out of enter the 2021 fiscal year in good shape with a board-compliant fund balance. Because after that, after those years, we settle into a situation where the state is promising less and less growth in a landscape that doesn't necessarily mean our costs are going to go down. Okay. Okay. Lots of questions about FTE, both from a staffing standpoint as well as a student standpoint. So look at some slides that give you a flavor for both. Okay, both here's a staffing look. Okay, it's important to keep track of what you're looking at, whether you're looking at budget to budget or actual to budget, okay? So there's a couple ways you can look at this, all right? Our budget to budget, okay, comparing column C to column D, column B to column D, is down about 70 total staff, okay? And you see how D and B comprise, that breaks you down for you by CIS, administrative staff, and classified staff. Okay? Now, column D and column C represent almost just a slight increase from actual, but basically flat. Okay, now that is in part a function of the next slide, which is students. How many do we expect? This year's budget includes what I consider to be a pretty conservative budget enrollment estimate, student enrollment estimate. Less than 1%, I think it's like 0.7% increase that we're estimating. A couple of offsetting things happening there. One is that we genuinely think that growth will be low. There's also been a change in the state rules around what constitutes a full-time enrolled student, which we expect to have some impact on our part-time students. So if, for example, in the high school, we have students taking maybe 1 or 2 classes at their home high school, and then going to Running Start for the remainder of their day, our ability to claim, like let's say a 0.4 for a student who goes 2 classes, that will now be a 0.36. And so we have some estimates about the extent of the impact we think that will have, and it will have some depressive impact on enrollment, not just for Kent, but for all districts. Okay? Enrollment has been in the news a lot with regards to Kent. And so I think this is an important slide to show. If I'm out in the community and I'm talking to somebody, the first thing they say is, why can't you project enrollment rate? And I think it's important to know, and let's spend a little time with this slide, okay, that while Kent did have a number of years, and you see that represented on the far right column, so you've got far left is projected enrollment, the light blue medium is the actual enrollment, and then the far right column is the net difference between what was projected and what actually materialized. And go to the far right where you see the total variance. Okay, so you see a number of years there where there was a pretty sizable difference between what the district estimated it would get in the way of enrollment and what actually materialized. Until you get to this year. And this year's enrollment projections were the most accurate that we've had since 2011. And in particular, as to the total K-12 enrollment, you see the 76 number on the far right. That's driven almost entirely by Running Start, which is a program where we receive the money and then send the money on, right? So the fiscal relationship for us is a little different there. But just as it relates to the generalized K-12 population, which is that first column in the far right column, a net difference of 30, which is really very accurate. And I wanted to publicly acknowledge the work of the team in doing that, particularly Lisa Tyler, who took the head of that process. And so if you're carrying a belief that the Kent School District continues to not project enrollment correctly, that's an incorrect belief at this point. I don't know of any district that's been more accurate this year. Okay. Made reference earlier to the Capital Projects Fund, and I don't plan on going project by project here, but I wanted you to be able to tie this on. So this is the list that you can refer to when you want to unpack the budgeted amount for the Capital Projects Fund for 18-19. So that $78.2 million is an exact tie to the projected 18-19 expenditure for that account. And you'll see in red there that you got your normal, the list that you would typically associate with this list, and then you've got lists associated with the tech levy that we just passed as a part of that capital and technology levy that was before the voters. That was not bond driven, but is now an annual levy. Okay. Okay. So you have a lot of information before you. You have the budget book, which is extensive in its overview both at a central office and school level. You also have the 195 itself, which is primarily a technical document. But I don't want to overwhelm you with data that isn't meaningful. And so part of what I try to do in these presentations is pull out themes. Say, of all the data that you have, what does it mean? What are the values that are expressed in this budget, and what are some important things to remember as we go forward? So here are some of my shots at that. I got 2 slides on takeaways. The first is that there is a real explicit attempt to explicitly link this budget with the strategic plan in the way that we've talked about those programs that directly impact students that are experiencing opportunity gaps. There is a shift, a continued shift for teaching and teaching support and away from administration, which shouldn't surprise. I mean, it's pretty evident that the size of central office has decreased, and so you see that reflected in these documents, and that's a value expressed on behalf of the district and the board, a more streamlined central office function. One of the ways, as I provide an example of the ways in which this budget directly supports the strategic plan and directly addresses opportunity gaps, is the ability that the increase in LAP funds allows us as a district to make investments in MTSS programs, multi-tiered system of supports programs. And if Randy Heath were here, I'm sure he'd love to get up and expound on the plans on that. But the increase in LAP funds allows for us to sustain and continue that investment, which directs away not just from the academic needs of students, not away from, but includes all the social emotional needs of students as well, which I know is critical in this district. And then finally, I would say that, again, as part of this transition, it reflects conservative enrollment projections, a desire to establish a fund balance and keep it. We've had a fund balance in the past, we just can keep it. And so the discipline to set those institutional limits to sustain fiscal health is really, I think, what I see reflected here. And then the last slide, I wanted to leave you with what I think are 5 goals for budget and finance that certainly reflect on this budget, but are not just about next year, but beyond. There's more technical wordings of these that are paragraphs long. I just gave you the little bumper sticker version, but it reflects kind of, I think, where our thinking is as a district about how we can improve and move to a place where we're a best practice district and other districts are emulating us on budget practices. The first is that on an annual basis, we would have an ethic to try to spend less than we take in. Any family would have that ethic, and that's an appropriate ethic for a school district to try to maintain. You can't do that every year, but it's certainly something to keep track of. And for many years, it appears that we lost focus on that. Second, we need to be aggressive about eliminating the interfund loan. We had the interfund loan as a product of the fact that we ended the year in a deficit. That's no secret to anybody. That left us in a cash poor situation throughout the 17-18 school year, and a big goal for 2018-19 is to eliminate that loan as soon as possible. The third goal is to establish and maintain a 5% fund balance as your policy requires. And finally, fourthly, for those of us that joined us at the work session earlier today, we talked about the fact that Moody's Investor Service has us at a single A bond rating with a negative outlook, and they're waiting to kind of see whether we stabilize financially in terms of what our next bond rating is. You know, we really should be at AA3 or higher, as many of our peers are. There's absolutely no reason for a school district in Washington State to have an A1 bond rating. And so this budget helps get us to a place where we can make that case and get back to a bond rating that's more befitting a district of this size. And then the final goal that we espouse is that we want to communicate with clarity our budget status, where we're at, and how the budget supports our strategic plan goals. And that'll manifest in a number of different ways, but once we kind of get over the hump of adopting a budget, we invest a lot of our time in our website and in means of communication about providing budget statuses to different audiences, some of whom may want technical detail and some of whom don't want it. They just want to know, like, how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Are things fine? And that's important. We can't just hand out reams of annual audits and expect that that's going to do the job. We really have to work on meaningful two-way communication as it relates to the budget. So with that, I'd like to yield to my colleague, Lisa Tyler, who's going to walk you through some of the materials that she produced, and I will make myself available for all questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, President Bangadassalam, members of the board, Dr. Watts, Ms. Howley. So, yes, as Ben indicated, I will be going over some of the documents that you've been provided, prior to or in preparation for tonight. And then my intent is to just kind of walk you through an overview of the budget document, not really intending to go page by page. It would be very redundant from what you just listened to, but kind of help you navigate what it is you're looking at. And so that's what I will do in my portion of the presentation. So I believe of the documents you've already received would be the F-195 or the state-required budget document format, which can be a bit tedious to go through unless you know exactly what you're looking for, because it's information presented in various ways, very redundant, but it just shows you every which way, our budget was developed. Great document, but not the most user-friendly. You also, I believe, have received the actual budget amendment resolution, the budget document, which, as opposed to the F-195, is a bit more user-friendly and understandable, which we have prepared for you. And then I have also provided you with a little trifold, handy resource that hopefully you'll find useful for maybe speaking to your constituents and what have you. So, the budget document. So this year we deliberately presented the document in 4 separate sections. The first section is a financial section providing a comprehensive detail of the budget information presented earlier tonight by Mr. Rarick. So it's the same information. And the major components of this first section are a budget overview of our 2018-19 budget for all 5 of our funds, high level. We have a summary of our revenue estimates by major source. We have a summary of expenditure estimates by program, activity, and object. Those are always the 3 typical ways in which we present our expenditure data. On page 13, again, I'm not going to go by this page by page, but I do want to point out a few specific pages. Page 13 provides a multi-year comparison of expenditures by major program. So we're starting to get into a little bit more of the detail on what the actual expenditure levels are by program. On page 15, you'll find the MSOC budget report, which is a new requirement last year, where we need to show the difference in the MSOCs as funded by the state versus the levels that we budget for. And these are non-personnel categories. And so it's comparing the funding levels based on the prototypical school model compared to what we budget for. And one thing to note there is we're only looking at basic ed programs, so we're not talking about the grants and categoricals. This is only basic ed funding levels. And you can see there is I'm going to see a variance of almost $7.5 million, and that's the amount of MSOCs that we are funded for versus what we're budgeted. That sounds like a large number, but this is representative of, maybe not to this exact dollar amount, but any district would be budgeting a higher level of MSOCs than what they're actually funded for. That's just, we're getting better, the fully funded piece, but we're getting better. But so that's not necessarily a bad thing that we're over budgeted there based on what we're funded for. Section 2 of the document presents staffing and enrollment assumptions that we used when developing the 18-19 budget. And a page that I would like to point out here is page 21, which presents on the second half of that page is a chart which depicts what we call our over formula staff. And that is, again, comparing the level of staffing that we are funded for compared to what we have budgeted for. And hang on, let me get to that page. So in this year's budget, we are budgeted for, and again, this is basic ed programs only, so not looking at grants and categoricals. This is our basic ed programs. We are almost 41.3 FTE budgeted in excess of what we're funded for. So that sounds like maybe, a lot, but let me give you some comparative numbers. In June of 2016, that 41 number, that over formula number, was 305.7. In August of 17, we reduced somewhat, but we were still at 263.8 over staff, based on what we're funded for. May of this past year, May of 2018, that number was 106.1. So you can see we've been, improving as far as our staffing levels compared to what we're funded for, but 41.2, that actually is a great number. If you compare that number to other districts, we are, I would say, pretty much right where we want to be. That's a great number. Section 3 provides detailed budget information for each school and central department. So the first page of this section presents enrollments and the basic MSOC allocation for each school. It's just a summary listing, and there's a comparative for the previous 2 years as well. And then beyond that, pages 27 through 68 actually gives you a very detailed snapshot page for the staffing levels and detailed budget for each school and alternative program. So that should be hopefully very informative, just looking at school by school, and you can compare which instructional programs are at which schools and staffing levels, compared one school to the other. So hopefully that's useful. And then following that section is similar information for our central departments. So you can see the amount of MSOCs budgeted for central departments, and then further detail showing staffing by department and the budgeted amounts.
Tyler?
Yes.
Can we ask you to elaborate on the detailed expenditures by program where there's a significant jump, something like instructional programs, other, and the middle school career and technical programs?
Can you give me a page number?
Well, this is in the summary sheet, so I'm not quite sure where in the budget. the
Okay,
details.
so essentially, when we budget, if you're comparing budget to actual numbers, our Program 7 series, which is our other instructional programs, that is where we place the majority of our contingency amounts. So if you're looking at a budget for 1 year, this year, compared to maybe actuals for previous years, our budget is going to look ridiculously higher, because that's where we budget for our contingency, and typically that could be it's typically between $5 and $7 million in any given year that we budget as contingency expenditure line items, and that program series, the 7,000 series, which is other instructional, that is just the placeholder for that. Historically, that's where that's been. So if you were to compare budget to budget to budget for previous years, it should look a lot more similar than comparing actuals to budget in that line item. Okay, so let's see. Section 4 of the document presents budget summary information for our four other funds, including, again, as Ben noted earlier, provides a listing of projects, of all of our projects planned in the capital projects fund. So, again, hopefully you'll find this very user-friendly, very informative. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact anyone in our office, actually. And you'll find that, I suspect that throughout the year, as we bring to you our monthly budget updates, we very well could be referring back to any of the documents that you've received for tonight. No? Any other questions?
Thank you. Start with Debbie. Here. Go this way.
The one thing that, and I appreciate the format that you put, so thank you. The one thing that I was trying to ascertain was if I was looking at professional development, how much is budgeted into the budget, where would I find?
That primarily would fall under Activity 31.
Okay.
31 and 31.
31?
Yes.
Thank you.
As a secondary source for that, Debbie, would be program. We have Title, Sarah, help me out. Title II, which is program number 52, the BEST grant, yeah. So it's a combination of that program, but keying into the majority of it. It's not all going to fall under Activity 31, but between the two. And again, any of us could help sort that out for you.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Let's start, when we look at budgeting FTE to FTE, this is slide 10 in the presentation. At what capacity do we budget? Do we budget at full capacity, everyone hired every day, every month of the year? Or how do we plan those FTE numbers?
The FTE that is representative of the budget includes unfilled positions.
So it includes unfilled positions?
Correct.
So we think about, regardless of people in positions, it's the structural positions within the organization?
Right.
When we think about, sorry, this is back on slide 9, because we have detail on, all this detail on the 18-19 budget, supporting the $378.1 million in spending. When we look out, how much detail do we have going forward, or do we have a lot of assumptions about what goes up, what stays the same? Do we have cost control targets in this budget, things like that?
As we developed our projections or our forecast, we used, some basic assumptions, but as we all know, the further you get out, the less reliable those assumptions might become. I believe was it 3.5% for our expenditure increases, so it's really conservative, reasonable estimates. But again, I would emphasize the further you get out from today, the more gray it gets.
Right, so that's what I was kind of getting at. Are we doing conservative expense growth, meaning assume growth in most cases, assume full staffed headcount all year, things like that? And then flip into the revenue side, what kind of revenue projections do we get from the state about years out, things like that?
Well, there's some knowns. I might have Ben stand up here, but conservative expenditures, absolutely. And then there are some knowns for our revenues that, we know how things are going to change, but again, conservative.
So starting on the revenue side, so in the short term, the levy picture is, it's reasonably well known. You can feel relatively confident, I think, in the 1920 levy numbers. So what you see happening in 1920 on the revenue side going down reflects, we just use OSPI's model of what 1920 will produce based on the combination of the calendar year. So there's not a lot of subjectivity there. You get further out, there is a little subjectivity in terms of what do you think is going to happen with property? And I know some people think property is going to keep growing at 9%. I'm not among those people, but, you have to make some assumptions about, 4 years from now, frankly. On the state side of revenues, they give us that multi-year tool. And so basically you can see, to use the two categories of special purpose and non-special purpose. On the non-special purpose side, I was going to try to give you numbers exactly off the top of my head, but I'm drawing basically from models produced for districts. I'm not inventing a model in that. Where it gets a little more subjective is on the expenditure side of the equation. And part of what we're looking at there is you want to be grounded, at least to some extent, in the history of the district in terms of what, you can say you're going to cap expenditures at 3%, but if you haven't done that for 10 years, then what are you drawing upon, So what you're seeing on the expenditure side is for the programs that are the more special purpose programs, that if you don't spend them, you give the money back. We show that as revenue, and then we show that as investment in those programs, as expenditure. When you show it on the revenues on the other side, we don't necessarily show all that as expenditure. That's a little more detail for you.
I think it's good. The other thing I wanted to clarify was on the local levies. I believe I breathed through the 195. We had a rollback on the local levy collection for this upcoming year.
Yes, we
Was that
do.
Correct.
Correct.
So we had said we could collect a certain amount and authorize that, but we cannot based upon property value, whatever.
Correct. Yeah, which is not at all uncommon.
Okay, so we have less money. And I just want to be clear here, when we think about future local levies, this assumes that a similar one at $1.50 per $1,000 assessed value does pass and is in those revenue numbers.
That's right, and that's a critical point. Because on something like this, you're not trying to be like overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. You're trying to be. So I felt like an assumption that we wouldn't fail our levy is not. It's not something I could base a 4-year outlook on. It remains a downside concern.
Yeah.
So I think I spoke to the board about, optimistic and pessimistic forecast considerations, and certainly a pessimistic one is, we passed our levy by, I think, less than, it was a very narrow margin, so.
Okay, those are my questions.
All right. I think you answered Ross's question. I think we all had that question, so thank you. And I just also wanted to thank you as well publicly with all the work you've done with our projections, enrollment projections. And I had a question, though, on that. What was the growth model we were using prior to, I think you said it's the cohort growth model that we're using now? What were we doing before? I was just curious.
We've always used it's referred to as the cohort survival model, in which you look at, you're basically just looking at the historical trend of this year's first graders, the number of this year's first graders that become the next year's second graders, and so on for each grade. And you just, you have a model going back for multiple years, and then you develop it's basically a survival percentage, and you can look at it, and essentially, I usually work my model a couple of different ways. I'll do a straight average, maybe take 3 years, see what the average survival percentage is. I would probably also do, you can maybe go back 5 years, you can do a weighted average, so you kind of run it a couple of different ways, and then, step back and see, okay, then you look at, does this look reasonable? And then you drill down. So again, what I do is I do one of those models district-wide, and then I actually do it for each school. And then, oddly enough, those numbers come out, they're never going to come out the same, but they come out very close. So you can do a cohort model for each school over 3 or 5 years, and you can just get a pattern from how many of this school's second graders become third graders, or district-wide, how many of the district's second graders become third graders. Anyway, I'm probably giving you too long of an answer, but the district has always used that model. All districts do. I think where the difference might have been is that sometimes in our budget, we used our projected October counts versus, that's what our projection is, but then you need to calculate that to, if our October is this, then what will our annual average be? And again, that's based on historical percentages of, we were here in October, what did we end the year at? And so I budget using that calculated annual average estimate, not the October, because October is going to be higher than our annual average. So, just different methods, different calculations, different viewpoints.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Tyler. And Mr. Rarick.
I had one more question, I forgot it. I just wanted to clarify, as something that we have to do as a board, every district has to do, is we have to adopt some budget by August 31st is the official date. So next Friday, we have to adopt some budget, whatever that is. Okay. That was it.
All right. Hearing no other questions, thank you, Ms. Tyler and Ms. Riley. We will move on to our 3.0 public hearing. And this will be for our 2018-19 budget public hearing. And we will recess the board meeting for a public hearing to receive comments on the 2018-19 budget adoption. Any person wishing to submit written or spoken comments regarding the proposed budget may do so at this time. And I think we have comment cards here. Let's see. I'm assuming most of these are regarding the budget, so I'm going to start with Ms. Becca Ritchie, followed by Steve Lawrence, followed by Rochelle Greenwell, and Jennifer Stand.
My name's Becca Ritchie. I live at 5004 Northeast 13th Place, Renton, Washington. Dr. Watts, President Vengadasala, did I get it right? I had Todd Francisquina in Renton for many years, so I'll get it. I'm a new teacher to Kent. I actually applied here and got picked up to teach at Mill Creek. And I really liked what I heard about the work that was being done in Kent around equity. We've seen it woven in all that we've been exposed to so far as new teachers in the district, and I'm really excited about it. And as you get to know me, you'll know that that speaks to my soul. The work must be done to address institutional racism, and I commend the direction that the district has taken. Now, I'm not going to discuss with you the history of the News Coalition or the McCleary ruling or the actions of the 2018 legislature. I'm going to presume that leaders in any school district in Washington State know of the actions and decisions that have led us to the place where we are, where we have ample funding for schools. Since 1983, the Doran case, educators in Washington State have been advocating for professional pay and the values the value that people that work in the buildings have with the children every day. My mother walked the picket lines twice in the 80s. Why? For professional compensation and for lower class sizes. That was in the 80s. This year, funding for professional compensation for all educators, both certified and classified, has been allocated by the state. My mom would be proud that the state has finally addressed one of the challenges she fought for. Union members believe that amply funding public education, including competitive salaries, is a civil rights issue. If the leadership in this school district that has a high population of communities of color make the conscientious choice not to use state-provided funding to give similar wages to their employees that more affluent, majority white communities in school districts have given their educators, the appearance is that the district would be complicit in perpetuating institutional racism. I am sure that that is not the appearance that this district wants to perpetuate, is it? Martin Luther King said the time is always right to do what is right. And I ask you, will you do what is right? Thank you for your time.
Excuse me. My name is Steve Lawrence. I teach at Grass Lake Elementary, which is sort of my home address since I'm there more than I am home, actually. But I do live in Maple Valley at 25825 Southeast 142nd Street. I don't really have a prepared statement, but first I want to commend the board members for being public servants. I know it's not easy, and this has probably been a very trying year for all of you. And I know you have conflicting presentations by the teachers through their union and by your staff and your superintendent. And I know it's very difficult when you weigh these two presentations that are at odds with each other in many ways. It's very difficult to make a choice. But I think any elected official, when they come down to the final decision as to what is best for a community, they have to consider the community is the final standard. What makes a person want to stay in this district, have their children go to school in this district, or which one of these two presentations would be most likely to make a citizen, people that elected you, not want to be in this district and not want to send their children here. This budget, you've got $33 million I see left over at the end of the year, and that's, I assume, to meet the 5%. Twice that was mentioned that the 5% budget surplus, sort of, as a rainy day fund, is a board policy. Does it have to be 5%? Could it be 1%, ramp up 0.5% each year to allow some growth in wages? If you commit this district to have the lowest wages in the region, you're going to be bottom feeders when it comes to taking students out of college. You're not going to attract the best and the brightest, and you're not going to retain those that achieve a high level of teaching skills. They're going to leave. It's not just numbers that they're going to present. Look at these people there. Look at all these teachers here. If that person right out there is denied $7,000 a year that Highline gets, multiplied by the next 20 years in her career, multiplied by the COLAs that are based on that, multiplied by the retirement funds, anybody would be a fool to come to a district that is that much below the others. It's $200,000 difference in a career. You just, whatever you do, you have to come up with a way to stay competitive. It's all about meeting the standards of the region, not the standards presented by a superintendent or staff, the very people that have got us into a negative balance. You have to figure your way out of this. Does not cut the throat of this district. That's it.
Hello, board members, Dr. Watts. I am not going to attempt to say any names, so I don't butcher them. My name is Rochelle Greenwell. I am your ESPWEA Board Director at Large. I am here speaking as an individual. I am currently a paraprofessional at Kent Elementary. I am speaking here today because I am a single mother. I am a single mother with a daughter that has Asperger's. And the job that I have with the Kent School District is the only job I have. It is the only job that I have to be able to support my daughter who attended Kent Meridian High School. When you don't value us as employees as part of this district, it portrays a bad light for those of us that are single parents. I am gainfully employed for this district. I am staying in this district. I have a degree in education. I could be a teacher, but I choose and I want to be a paraprofessional. That is why I got the board director position, and it is a choice. I love what I do, but because of the pay, I qualify for food stamps. I qualify for anything that welfare has to offer because I am paid so little. I want to stay with this district. I want to stay at the school where I am. But we deserve a living wage too. All of us deserve a living wage. We are each Wonder Women and Supermen that deserve the strength of a living wage. And if you don't value us enough to show us our value in increasing salaries, then why are you here? Because we deserve respect and we deserve a living wage. All of us do. I'm done.
have Laura Hefner, followed by Tammy Lowell, followed by David Weiss, and Matt Smalley.
My name is Laura Hafner. My address is 4515 South 256 Place in Kent, Washington. Good evening, Dr. Watts and fellow board members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm a paraeducator at the Outreach Program, otherwise known as TOP. I started with the district as a sub in 2004, and in 2008, I found TOP and accepted a position with them. Prior to the school district, I worked for Bank of America, formerly Seafirst, for 23 years. I have a computer science degree, and I worked in the Systems and Technology Division. I worked a lot, sometimes 80 hours a week. I left work, got home, and signed on to the computer. I was on call 24/7. When an opportunity came along in 2003, I jumped at a chance, leaving the bank with almost 3 years of severance pay, allowing me to take care of my ailing mother. My mother passed away in 2004, and I got bored. A friend suggested the school district, so that's where my school district career began, in preschool. I loved it. Slowly over the years, I made my way to TOP. I was afraid of the older students, but once I got there, I never left. I felt like I was making a difference. It's my way of giving back. I'm lucky. I live in a dual income household. My husband is retired, and while he has a pension and Social Security, it's not keeping up with inflation. Many of my coworkers aren't as lucky. They have 2 to 3 jobs, rely on food banks and low-income housing. They have children. How can the district allow this to happen? I love my job. I love my coworkers, admin staff, and especially our principal. I respect each and every one of them. I love my students, and I respect them. The district should show us respect by paying us what we deserve. We are educating the future leaders of the community, possibly the country. The parents believe in us and support us, or they wouldn't trust us to work with their children. Please show us respect by paying us a living wage. I don't do this job for the money, obviously, but we should be paid a living wage. If something were to happen to my husband, my situation will change. I most likely won't be able to stay in the home I've lived in for 30 years, the home I raised my daughter in. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Watts. My name is Tammy Lovell, and I reside in Covington at 18816 Southeast 260th Street. I, too, am a para at the TOP program, and I've lived in Kent my whole life. My dad was a teacher for the Kent School District. My mom worked at KEA for over 40 years. I graduated from Kent Ridge High School, and all 4 of my kids graduated from the Kent School District at Kent Ridge. This is the first time, and I've seen our district go through ups and downs, but this is the first time I can honestly say I'm ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the teachers or the paras, because I tell you they do an incredible job. They work their butts off every single day when they go to work for their students. But I'm ashamed of our administration to the point where we are in a deficit. I'm being taught curriculum that's not even being used in our program because it's money spent, not used. That's ridiculous. What Laura said before me, I work with an incredible group of people. Many, and I'm lucky because I do have a 2-parent, we have a 2-income household, but I bring home $1,600 a month. People have asked me, well, why don't you get another paying job? Why should I have to? I love what I do. I make a difference for each and every one of my students when I go to work every single day. And we work hard. We work just as hard as the teachers do, as the secretaries do. But I can tell you, making $1,600 a month for a single person, I don't know how they do it unless they're living in their car. I literally, I mean, you can't even get an apartment for $1,600 a month. And if you have children, I mean, it's shameful. It's shameful. And you guys have the money that was mandated to give to us. And I have a friend that works as a para. She wanted to be here tonight. Guess where she's at? She's working her second job. Working her second job. That's not right. You guys have $9 million, I guess, what I just found out before here, that was mandated for paras. $9 million. You're going to put $35 million in your reserve, and I'm sorry, I couldn't see the numbers from back there, and you can't give us a lousy $9 million to get us up to where we can actually have a living wage, where single moms can come to work and not have to worry how they're going to put food on the table or go to their second job. Like I say, I'm proud of the work I do, and I'm proud of the teachers, and I'm proud of the paras, because we do an incredible job, and my kids got an incredible education. But I have a brand new granddaughter, and my daughter just said the other day, because she knows what's going on, she goes, Mom, I don't know if I want Kyla going to the Kent School District because of what's going on and the mess that they're in. And it's not because of the teachers, it's because of what's happening here in this building. And it's shameful. And I would ask that you guys would really look into your budget and try to give the teachers and the paraeducators a decent living.
We have David Wise, followed by Matt Smalley, and then Chris Conklin, followed by Tamara Lucretia Glover, please.
My name is David Wise. I'm a paraeducator with the Kent School District for over 17 years. I live at 23612 100th Avenue Southeast here in Kent. I spent the last 12 years in the outreach program. My concern tonight, though, is not my job. It's more on a personal level for me. I have a 15-year-old son with autism, Ian, and his education. Through the years, we've been blessed with some amazing teachers and paraeducators that were able to help Ian achieve educational goals that far beyond his expectation and ours. This was only happen because we built a working relationship with my son. And for the people with special needs, especially those with autism, it can take many months and years. Unfortunately, we have spent some years where my son really struggled because we have lack of communication and experience with the educational staff. During those years, there were a few gains in several areas in which he regressed. What brings me here tonight is my concern from my personal experience. I know how hard the teachers and paraeducators work, and I know the financial struggles trying to keep ends meet in the current wage. I have to work 2 jobs along with my wife who works full-time. My situation is not unique. I know many others who work multiple jobs just to get by. This is not a sustainable way to live. For years, we have struggled with wages that did not keep pace with the cost of living because we were told there wasn't any money. But now there's money allotted by the legislature expressly to pay teachers and paraeducators a reasonable wage that is both competitive and reflects the value of the job being done. I don't feel offering the educators and the staff a fraction of that money allotted does either of these things. I am concerned that we're going to lose many wonderful and experienced teachers and paraeducators to other districts that are offering a wage more in line with the intent that our lawmakers had in mind. I am deeply concerned that my son's education, and we're not going to be able to keep those wonderful teachers and paraeducators he currently has that will guide him successfully through his high school years. Or are we going to struggle due to the lack of continuity and experience of the educational staff? I urge you to live up to the obligation entrusted to you by our legislatures to pay our staff, our educational staff, a reasonable and competitive wage that shows not only that you value the essential work that they do, but that you value the lives of our children and the duty to provide them with a quality education taught by experienced, dedicated teachers and paraprofessionals. I urge you to put our students and staff first. Thank you.
My name is Matt Smalley. My address is 14714 Southeast 188th Place, Renton, Washington, 98058. First thing we need to do is we need to accept that there's a huge problem right now. There is a huge problem looming, and it has been years in the making. 4 years ago, we went negative in March. 3 years ago, we went negative in February. 2 years ago, we went negative in January, and almost went to arbitration with the state because of it. This last year, we went negative in January. We ran out of paper towels. We ran out of toilet paper at our school. There is a problem right now. 300 teachers have now left the district. 300 times 25 kids means 7,500 kids. 7,500 students, conservatively, are going to get put into other classrooms on overload with teachers who you're trying to pay 3.1%. 3.1%. When we got 0 last year. Everybody around us got 10, 11% last year. You go north, east, west, south, everybody got 10, 11%. Now they're bargaining 15 to 29% on top of that. And you're trying to give us 3.1%. Everybody in the area is leaving Kent. All the teachers, all the paras, all the psychologists, everybody's exiting stage left because of the compensation. And if you think that it's going to get better, if you offer 3.1%, think about, play this out for the year. Put those 7,500 kids into overcrowded classrooms with teachers who barely got a cost of living adjustment, and then see what happens at the end of the year with the educators and where they go. They will be leaving Kent in droves. My daughter's at Kentridge starting this year, where I went. I'm kind of ashamed that she's going there. Choir got cut. She has autism too. This is one thing she was looking forward to. The one thing that she was looking forward to, and it got cut. When I went to Kentridge, I was in choir, and I played electric guitar for jazz choir, and there was hundreds of people, and there was 150 people in the choir. And we went to Reno. We took first. Trying to establish that there's a problem. Now I'm going to talk about solution, because what's problem without solution? The solution is use the McCleary money for what it's intended to be used for. It's not intended to be used. It's not a slush fund. It's not a rainy day fund. It's not to fill potholes that have been made over the last 4 years. It's to be used for teacher salary increase. And if it isn't used for that, I've outlined what's going to happen. Thanks.
Chris Conklin? Not here.
Thank you very much for listening to us tonight. My name is Chris Conklin. I live at 12916 Southeast 188th Street in Renton. We moved to this area into the Kent School District 24 years ago because of the great reputation of this district. My children both graduated from the Kent School District. My youngest, my son Andrew, started in the special needs preschool program when he was 3, and he graduated from TOP, the outreach program, in 2017 at age 21. So he spent 18 years of his life in this district. As a parent of a special needs student, I know how important the paraeducators are. Andrew had some amazing teachers along the way, but paras, and one para in particular, played a crucial part in Andrew's education and growth. And without her care and commitment, Andrew would not be the person he is today. I'm also a paraeducator, and I've been working in the district now for going on 13 years. And the reason I started working as a para was to make a difference in students' lives. I wanted to give to other students the same care and dedication to learning that my son had received as he was growing up from the paras and other educators who touched his life. I didn't join the district for the pay. I came to make a difference. The pay would be nicer, but
I know the district has received millions of dollars from the state to increase salaries for teachers and support staff, including paraeducators. I just urge you to do the right thing. You have the money. Show the teachers and the paras that you value them. Please give the paraeducators a raise and the salaries they deserve. Paras are a crucial part of the education team, and they work hard. I work hard to support students. They make a difference in the lives of our students, and I know this firsthand as a parent and a para. Please show the students that you care about them and that they're important by respecting the teachers and the paras, and do the right thing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tamara Lucretia Glover. I reside at 21309 120th Place Southeast, Kent, Washington, 98031. This is the first time I've ever come up and spoken in front of anybody. First, before I get started, I did not write anything. I'm not prepared. That's fine. I don't need it. I want to extend a gratitude to Dr. Watts for writing my son's reference letter to college. He got into the top echelon of the business school that he had to go to, and he needed that letter. And because he is a quality student, he is a servant leader by nature, I'm sure it wasn't hard for Mason Glover to have a letter of recommendation from you. But the reason why I'm up here, it isn't the pay. I looked into what it would be like to be a certified and to get more money. I know how to go out and make more money, but I chose to be a para because I like to support. I like to help. And I do the things that teachers want to do but can't do on a one-on-one level.
Thank you.
I take those kids, I go above and beyond what my quote-unquote contract kids are. I take those one-on-one kids that are disruptive in class, that don't necessarily are looked at as wanting to learn. I take them out of that classroom, give them additional education. Meanwhile, the teacher can still teach those 29 to 30 other kids that are in that classroom. That's what I do. And I do that well, and I do that without complaint. It's what I do. It's what I do. So the reason why I'm up here now is because now that my son is going to college, he had to fill out a whole bunch of forms of paperwork and that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what, here, let me give you my information based off of what I earn. And Canada, he went to Canada, y'all, he's an international student. Canada basically almost did not give him a student visa because of what I make, because they said, you can't afford to send your child to school. He was on the honor roll, he was a part of the leadership, the student leadership amongst all of KSD. He went on a scholarship for football. He was on honor roll. He had all kinds of cords and all that kind of stuff. He did everything right. And because of what I make, I was not able possibly to send my kid to where he wanted to go. He's done everything that he needed to do to make a path to create that option. My son is a young black male, and we know what the statistics are. He could have went one way or the other, and education is where it's going to go, and he needs that. Make it so I can sit there and send my son to college and not go in debt. It's time.
Trish Bell, followed by Angela Henlo. Apologize for mispronunciation. Angela or Trish? No? All right. Okay, so let's do Teresa Turner. Overflow?
Could you repeat those names, please?
Yes. Trish Bell, and then Angela Palo, sorry. Then Teresa Turner. So Trish Bell is not here? All right, okay. Thank you. Right here.
Do you want to present first? Who's first?
Trish Bell.
I'm so sorry.
Apologize.
Oh, no, that's all right. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, for the confusion. Dr. Watts, members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Kind of hard to follow the last one. I work with the emotionally disturbed students, as well as some of the behavior students, starting my 19th year of this job. I love my job. I love connecting with the students and helping them get further in their journey. So my mission here is to ask the board a few things. Please respect the work that we do. We do it because we love our kids, our students. Please pay us a fair wage. My personal story, I've had to go on Kaiser's financial assistance program because I can't make my co-pays. I can't afford my medications. I can't afford office visits. I got whooping cough from one of my students last year. I was out 4 weeks, and I had quite a number of weeks without pay due to whooping cough. I now have to shop at the Goodwill, which has been a very humbling experience. I can't even afford a studio apartment. I have to rent a room, and I'd really like to be out on my own, but I can't afford that. And I have a child back in another state who I can't even send child support to. I can't help to take care of my own son on this wage. The state of Washington has awarded districts across the state with some wonderful money. And I know it's not specifically for salaries only, but it's used to help fill in some of the areas, and I understand that that there's some money there. I would like to see that we can ensure that the Kent School District would continue to hire and retain our quality educators. At this point, I feel like our reputation's a little concerning. Your goal is to get us out of the hole that we're in, and it's a reasonable goal, and to get a 5% cash reserve. However, doing this at the expense of your paraeducators ultimately affects the morale of paraeducators who love their jobs. Ask yourself if each one of you could live on an $18,000 to $20,000 income per year. Can't we pull that reserve out just a little longer and give us a living wage? I thank you. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I've never done this before, but I felt like it was really important. Thank you for your time.
Is it Angela? All right.
Hi, my name is Angela Palo, and I live at 1629 22nd Street Northeast, Auburn, Washington. I am a special education teacher at TOP. I'm also a Kent School District graduate. I attended Fairwood, Northwood, and Kentridge. They were stable schools. The staff's turnover was low, and as a child, that made school feel safe. It meant having my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Haraldson, say hi to me every day until I finished 6th grade. It meant I could sit in my sophomore algebra class and hear my teacher, Mr. Brown, tell stories about what students' parents were like as teenagers, because he had been teaching at Kentridge for that long. It meant going back to Northwood to see the musicals that Mrs. G had put on long after my sister and I were students there. Stable schools create stable communities, and for some students, stability at school is their only sense of stability. It is so important. We are at a critical juncture as a district. We get to decide whether we create stability for the next generation of KSD students, or whether they will get chaotic schools with a revolving door of staff members. Recently, the McCleary case required the state to provide the district with $75 million. This money is for increasing educator salaries, although the district can use it differently. Many neighboring districts have already said yes to using the McCleary money as it was intended, and have significantly raised educator salaries and morale. Bellevue School District has raised teacher salaries by 17%, South Kitsap by 21%, and Edmonds School District by 26%. These districts are creating stable schools and ensuring they don't lose educators to another district just down the road. These districts can incentivize talented, experienced educators to come to them. Would you choose to teach for KSD starting at $37K if you could start in Edmonds at $62? If KSD does not use the McCleary money for educator salaries, we will continue to see an exodus of educators out of this district to neighboring ones. It is one thing when educators leave to retire or make a career change, but people leaving KSD to take similar jobs in other districts in South King County is sad and preventable. When KSD does not offer competitive pay, our schools have unfillable vacancies. Special education is especially vulnerable to high turnover. The inability to adequately staff special ed classes with quality paraeducators who will stay is one reason why. And it is no wonder this is a problem. Paras salaries are insultingly low. Last school year, my students toured an apartment building to learn about how adults rent homes. Seeing the embarrassment on the paras' faces when we all realized they did not meet the income requirement felt awful. Some parents in my school work 3 jobs and rely on food banks to provide for their families. This is not right. There are currently hundreds of open positions on the KSD website. Our schools are so desperate for teachers that some are hiring people to teach that have no teacher training or experience because no qualified candidates will apply. This is a problem. Let's make KSD a district where talented educators make their career, not just their start. I hope the school board will insist the district use the McCleary money to increase educator salaries. It is how we will recruit and retain talent in KSD. Thank you.
Teresa, go ahead, please.
President Vengda-Salam, members of the board, and Dr. Watts. My name is Teresa Turner. I live in Kent. I have 2 boys who have graduated from the Kent School District, and I have taught here for 24 years. I'm a social studies teacher at Kent Lake High School, home of the Falcons, where I am one of the building reps, and I serve on the KEA Executive Board. I also serve as Kent Director on the WEA Board of Directors, a position that I was elected to by our members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. The Kent School District should know that to hire and retain the best teachers, they need to offer a competitive salary. Districts all around us are putting their McCleary money where it was intended, into the salaries of their educators. In recent salary negotiations, some of these increases were 20% for Edmonds, South Kitsap, 21%, Bellevue, 17.3%, Bainbridge Island, 21.2%, Peninsula, 22.1%, Bremerton, 22.4% for the first year, and by the end of the second year, it'll be 26%. The McCleary decision has resulted in our legislature adding an additional over $7 billion to educational funding. $2 billion have been earmarked for educator salaries. Kent will receive $74 million over the next 2 years for educator salaries. Other districts are investing in their students by investing in their educators. Why aren't you? Your teachers are worth it, and the money is there. Thank you.
All right, Carolyn Kelley, followed by Zach Stockdale, Gabriel Blakemore, Natalie Bachman. And we would like to mention that we're still receiving cards. We had asked that prior to public hearing, we wouldn't accept any other cards. So we're going to close it now. Right? All right. Ms. Kelley.
My name is Caroline Kelley. I work at Carriage Crest Elementary as a teacher librarian and technology specialist. Much of what I came here to say has been said before, and I think you have heard that. One of the things I wanted to note on our 4-year, we were planning for 4 years from now, and you had asked about professional development. When we're paying for professional development, we're hoping that knowledge is staying there. If Kent doesn't reliably get a living wage, that professional development money might as well be put in the toilet, because you are training someone else's district. You are time and time again, we end up, they come here because this is where they can get a starting job, and then they make the choice to stay for our kids, as I have, but the choice is getting harder and harder and harder to make the choice to stay and not to go. I know we need to fix our budget and that we can't run on a deficit anymore. But that's not what this money was for. You didn't win the lottery. You talked about the deficit from 2013, 2012. It should take that long or longer to get it back on track. We don't just dump $33 million and go, woohoo, we're done. Because in 4 years, in 5 years, this is going to be a sorry state with nobody who can get, with open positions. We have a 6th grade job, a regular 6th grade class that we can't find a teacher for. That's not even, it shouldn't be a hard position to fill. It just is mind-boggling to think that you could make these choices and think that you're going to get the outcomes that you want. The sweet spot of teaching is, research shows, is 5 years. At 5 years, teachers are at their maximum effectiveness and just continue to be super effective teachers. A student receiving 2 years of ineffectual teaching will never again make up those gains. It only takes 2 years, and the research shows they can't make that up. While we get all these emergency certs, I am happy for them to get jobs, and their enthusiasm is amazing. But you're losing all your mentor teachers, and those kids are never going to get those years back. Thank you.
Hi, Zach Stockdale. I live in Auburn, but I teach in Kent. I actually wanted to, I know this is a budget hearing, this actually isn't the public, so actually some budget-related concerns, questions to kind of pull up here. I was trying to look through the budget documents that the team has put together are extensive, and so I kind of had to go off of that summary, that 19-page kind of summary sheet that had the 4-year projection. I was looking at the 4-year projection because my understanding of most of our budgetary decisions for this coming school year are based in part upon the 4-year plan and the 4-year outlook. And I'm still not completely sure where that 4-year outlet's kind of come from, because I'm looking at expenditures and the ending fund balance projections. The ending fund balance projection for this year is 33, for 18-19 is 33 million approx. The next year is 35 approximately. Then it goes to 21 million, and then it goes to $977,000. So I feel like a lot of our, and I understand because I've talked to Ben, I've worked with him, that's him looking at the future and trying to, and I'm still not quite sure how that is coming from, because I know the concern is we need to stash a bunch of money now because we're looking 4 years down the road and we see our budget tanking. And I don't understand why the budget's tanking again. Like I said, I'm trying not to cherry pick numbers, but there's a lot of numbers on those sheets. But I saw stuff, it looked like the projections, the staffing, the FTE staffing, and the student enrollment numbers You had about a 14-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio for 18-19 projected, and about a 14.5. And this is just, I mean, number of students divided by FTE. I mean, I know there's way more going on than that HRS did with, but just, it's about 14. It doesn't actually vary that much. And yet, the spending doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not quite sure how our expenditures go up to $40 million, or $34 million over 4 years, and numbers like SPED funding going there's a $10 million increase in SPED, special education inclusive ed spending from 18-19 to in the 4-year plan. And so I see these numbers going, and I'm not clear how the budget plan we have is actually truly improving or actually getting us out of this thing. If we're looking at a less than a $1 million fund balance in 4 years, clearly something is still wrong. We go into deficit spending in 2 years under the current assumptions and plans that we have. And so I'm just unclear on how this, like, I can actually understand if I see, and I agree with those numbers, that maybe you want to have a bunch of money now up front. But I don't feel like there's questions being asked about what exactly is happening 3 to 4 years down the road that gets us into deficit spending in 2 years. That doesn't feel like good fiscal planning to me either, because I don't feel like that's been communicated. I sit on the bargaining team. I don't feel like it's been communicated to me. Like, this is what you're basing this year's budget on, and that's the discussion. But we need more information on how these long-term numbers are coming from, because they are what's informing your decisions now. And I'm worried that the questions aren't being asked about what is actually what's happening over those 4 years. So thank you.
Hi. So my name is Gabrielle Blakemore, and as we talk about budget, I wanted to actually remind you a little bit about McCleary. So McCleary versus Washington is a Washington State Supreme Court case that has found that the state was not fully funding education. The McCleary family, along with several school districts, including Kent, brought the suit to court in 2007, over a decade ago. I was in I was in high school then, but a while ago. In 2012, the state Supreme Court ruled in favor of McCleary and set a deadline of September of 2018 to amply fund education. To be in compliance with the ruling, the legislator needed to provide a budget that provided ample funds for basic education. That includes things like learning tools, so what we have in our classrooms, right? Learning environments, our classrooms ourselves, the buses to get us there, right? School and district staff, our paras, our teachers, and learning programs. So our special education program and all the wonderful things our students can benefit from. Over the past few years, the legislator has revised the state budget to more adequately fund learning tools, learning environments, and learning programs. Over the past few years, Kent has received additional funds for the aforementioned areas. Even with these changes, the legislator was still in contempt of court. They are still being fined. In March of this year, they finally approved a budget that was supposed to amply fund our school and district staff. As of June, they've been told that they are in compliance with McCleary. Now it is our turn to be in compliance with the suit that we helped file. The money is there. Thank you.
Members of the board, Dr. Watts, my name is Natalie Bachman. I'm a teacher at Panther Lake Elementary. I live in Kent as well. This will be my 8th year teaching for the Kent School District. Prior to teaching, I was a paraeducator in the Kent School District as well. And just as a side note, while I was a paraeducator, I lived at home with my dad, and I worked multiple part-time jobs in addition to that. and still didn't make much over the course of the year. We, the educators, certificated and classified employees working in the schools directly with the students, deserve competitive salary as professionals. The legislators, in compliance with the McCleary decision, have provided additional funding, more than $70 million, to the Kent School District to raise the salary of educators. I understand the district is in a difficult financial situation, but this occurred over multiple years. It should take time to solve this problem, rather than taking the money from the state that is intended for much-needed and long-awaited raises. I have spoken with our legislator, Pat Sullivan. There is no 3.1% cap restricting pay increases this year. Many districts have settled their contracts and have worked out fair agreements with their teachers. I hope that the Kent School District can do that as well. I am aware that the district will be collecting less money from levies in the future. However, state funding is increasing. Republican Chad Mogendans commented in a public forum that the law establishes the new prototypical school funding formula with built-in regionalization factors and COLAs for staff compensation, now protected under the Paramount Duty Clause. So while we've just projected spending out for the required 4 years to balance the budget, which I'm not an accountant and that still confuses me, how those numbers work out, it will continue to increase and should be the last area eligible for budget cuts in a shortfall. We work directly with the students. Our compensation is part of basic education as determined by the state. Thank you for your time, and I sincerely hope that you will put the money where it was intended to go.
Followed by Nicole Harris, Layla Jones.
Good evening, President Vengadaslam, members of the board, and Dr. Watts. My name is Chris Hill, and I am an English language arts teacher at Kentwood High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Prior to becoming a teacher, I was a journalist for 13 years. In fact, I covered this district. In fact, one of the last stories I wrote about this district was the very 12-13 budget that Mr. Rarick referred to earlier. I wasn't planning on speaking about it, but while I was waiting to speak, I happened to pull up the article that I wrote. And I have a couple of things that I just want to share really briefly. I'm going to go off script a touch. I apologize, Teresa. Let me just zoom in so I can read this. So one of the things that was said was, the thing people have to remember as we navigate these things, we not only have a responsibility to today's students, today's parents, today's teachers, today's community, we also have a responsibility to their grandchildren. This was said by a former Kent School District employee, interesting former Kent School District employee. If we're not wise now, we'll be especially foolish in the future. This was said in August of 2012. One other thing that was said that I thought was compelling, paying for things with money from the reserves is like paying your mortgage with your credit card. This was said by a former school district employee who left the school district about 9 months ago. Just something I want to mention. All right, so again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. At the June 27th, 2018 school board meeting, you discussed the state of the budget for Kent. Your budget and financial experts presented a plan to create a $37 million rainy day fund. Tonight, you are looking at taking the $74 million coming to you for salaries for educational employees and instead putting it into a rainy day fund. $33.1 million next year and $35.8 million for the following year. As many others before me have mentioned, the McCleary money, I'm going to bring it up again because I feel like repetition and emphasis is such a good literary device. I think it might also be, as an English teacher, I feel as though it might also be effective in this forum. Do you really think that the McCleary monies are there for you to put into a rainy day fund? These monies have been clearly intended for educator salaries. Why are you not honoring the intent of the McCleary monies? If you want to hire and retain quality educators, like the two people who teach across the hall from me. Wait, no, they don't, because they left for Issaquah. My mentors. I'm going into my 5th year of teaching. I would not be going into my 5th year of teaching without them, but they're gone. If you want to hire and retain quality educators and not let them be poached by other districts, you have the money. And I can tell you they're being poached. Emails are being sent. Look at everyone in this room and in the overflow rooms. Look at the number of people who stood outside today to call for a living wage and to support our paraeducators. Ladies and gentlemen, it is raining. You have the money. Kent educators are worth it.
President Megadethlam, Dr. Watts, board members. I'm Nicole Harris. I'm a proud Kentwood High School teacher. And there's been some misunderstanding regarding the sustainability of money coming from the state for educator salaries. This money is not a one-time deal. It's not going to disappear. This money is for salaries. Yes, the levy monies will decrease, but the intent of McCleary was to reduce reliance on levies. The state will be making up the difference, providing and maintaining funds to stay in compliance with McCleary. The money is there. This money is for salaries. Our kids deserve the best educators. If you want to attract and retain the best educators, then you must provide competitive professional pay. This money is coming from the state to provide competitive professional pay. The money is there. This money is for salaries. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Layla Jones and I am a teacher here in Kent. I moved here in 1995 with my parents, and I went to Daniel and Sequoia and KM, graduated from Kent Meridian. My student taught at Panther Lake, coincidentally right before the last strike. I'm entering my 5th year teaching kindergarten at Panther Lake now, and I love Kent. I bought a house here a few years ago because I knew I'm in the district I want to be in. This is my community. This is where I want to live. And for the first time, I am forced to really question what my future is here. And I worry about what this district looks like in the next year, in 5 years, in 10 years for me and my colleagues who do an amazing job every single day. A lot of what has been said is things that I wanted to speak to. The state has given Kent millions of dollars for salaries. The money is there and will continue to be there even after this big chunk comes through. This money is not supposed to be used to bail the district out of debt on the backs of our teachers, our parapros, our office staff. It's intended for salaries. The way that I see it, the district has two choices. You can use this portion of the McCleary funding as it's intended to negotiate fair, competitive, and professional salaries for your employees, or you can make up for past mistakes and create a budget surplus, but at the cost of creating a teacher shortage in Kent. Comes down to priorities. As our mission statement reads right behind you, it is our job as educators, administrators, and the school board to successfully prepare all of our students for their futures. You cannot do that without qualified and quality educators. Investing in our teachers is investing in our students. I've spoken with many of you at community meetings at the libraries that you've done or when you hosted at the high schools. Some of you have even come to our union hall to have a meeting with us. And I've heard the word legacy mentioned several times. So I'll ask you this. What do all of you want your legacy to be? The money is there. How will you choose to use it? Thank you.
We are now closing the hearing, and the regular meeting will resume.
I think we got stuck in general audience.
I said the budget.
This is 3 point. Yeah, no, it's in here. I apologize, we have a few cards in between here. One moment. It's got mixed. Budget, yeah, budget. Apologize, we're, some of these cards, there were information in addition to budget was listed, so. All right, we shall start with Russ Hanscom, followed by Leslie Hamada, Nancy Hill, Jennifer Itzy, thank you, and David Smith. Those are the 5 cards that we have for budget.
I think I'm stuck in.
Audience participation. Okay, all right. All right, Russ Hanscom. All right, Russ is not here. Leslie Hamada.
So what happened to my car?
What is your name again? I'm sorry, Leslie. Your name again?
Jennifer Strand.
Jennifer Strand. I'm not seeing Jennifer Strand, but. Okay, your card, Jennifer, didn't say anything. It didn't say budget or anything. So.
Actually, they told me that I didn't need to write anything.
All right, we will move it to budget. All right. Leslie,
You ready to go?
Please, yes.
Good evening, President Van Godoselin, Board, Dr. Watts, and Ms. Halley. It's my pleasure to be here this evening and testify again, as I did at the last board meeting, basically about the same thing. As I said, I'm consistent and I'm persistent. I have a reputation of that. First of all, I'd like to speak to the issue of the budget in comparison to salaries. I spent about 2 months talking to legislatures, King County assessor, and basically studying all this stuff. And I have a 32-year career in business managing large budgets. But to be honest with you, it's kind of complicated. And there's a lot of factors in it. However, I want to focus on one thing. Again, like I said before, this community needs to heal. And healing is a word that I don't think you can put a price tag to, but you can put a price toward respect in trying to reach the highest contractual agreement that this school district can sustain and can afford. And I am convinced, even though I don't have all the numbers in front of me, that what the public is reporting at 3.1 in the papers, that number is a far, far lower amount than really can be retained over the years. I think one of the things that isn't said here is, speaking with my legislators, that they haven't completely done their job. There is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. I think they are aware of that too, and I think we as a community can be working toward that to get them really where they need to be completely. And in the meantime, we might have to balance our budget a little slower. If it took a long time to get here, it may take a while to get out of it. And I think, again, on the healing part of this, we need to be doing this progressively slower to give the respect and a competitive wage to our certificated teachers. I'm sitting now on the steering committee for the updates to the strategic plan. You haven't seen that yet. You haven't adopted that yet. But under Goal 4, one of the biggest things that got the most votes from our committee, which is comprised of probably about 12 to 15 people regular meeting and about 76 people on email who are contributing in some way or writing on the computer their ideas, that the number one thing under Goal 4 was a competitive wage for certified teachers. That's an update to the strategic plan. I watched your finance man speak tonight about following the strategic plan. It drives the budget. These are updates, and I hope that we can heal our community by doing the very best at the bargaining table to keep our budget in line, but also giving the respect to the community as a taxpayer, as a mother, as a grandmother, and as a mother of a teacher. Thank you.
Sorry, I've come to a lot of board meetings and never spoke, so I thought I finally turned in a card, so I had to make sure I got up here. So, anyway, I am Nancy Hill. I am a teacher down at Mill Creek Middle School. I've been working in this district since 1999. I was a paraeducator as well before, and I cannot tell you that our world would not move if we didn't have our paras. That's just how it is. Again, I'm off script. I'm going to go kind of in a different path because I pretty much echo everything that's been said here. And some of the things that I have been hearing, don't know if it's true or not, but I'm just going to put it out there, is that because as board members, you're not hearing from everybody, you're not getting emails, you're not getting phone calls, you're under the assumption that people don't care. And I'm here to say that that is so not true. I am not one to get up in front, but I care. I am 6 years away from retiring. My husband says, "Why are you staying?" And I said to him, "It's because I don't think about your faces up here. I think about those faces in my classroom. They are the reason that get me there. I want to retire from teaching from Mill Creek Middle School. I don't know if I can financially. I just don't know if that's feasible. It's not the smart financial thing to do, looking forward into my future. So I implore you, please do not approve this budget. We have faith in our bargaining units, both our paras, both our teachers. We've had 2 votes of no confidence. And let me tell you, that vote of no confidence in our teachers was the quickest KEA union meeting I've ever been to. Not one person objected. No discussion. Yes, this is how we feel. If that doesn't tell you that people really care and they want to move forward, then I don't know if you're really listening or if you really want to. So please, along with healing, show us the respect. We've got to move this district to a place where we can respect each other. That's what our kids will see from this point forward. And they are watching. Our students are watching what is happening. And if you don't help guide them by your decisions and just say, nope, this is it. I even hear that there's questions. That's a lot of information. I don't understand it. I'm not going to say I do. But I also know that there are people out here that do understand it, and your other stakeholders can help you to understand. There's always 2 perspectives. Thank you for the budget group that put it together. I know that's their job, but your job is to oversee, and you don't have to accept what they said. You can put them back to the table. So please do not accept.
Jennifer Itzy. Okay.
I promise got it this time. I'm done with Kent School District in 10 years, all right? So my name is Jennifer Idzy. I live in the Fairwood area. I have 4 children throughout the Kent School District. I'm very active in PTA at all 3 of my schools. I'm a community member, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a substitute teacher. I moved to this district 13 years ago because I heard how amazing Kent schools were, and I wanted to raise my children there. I have 4 daughters, and up to this point, we have loved our experience. But I'll tell you, the last 2 or 3 years have been really tough. And my husband works up at Microsoft in Redmond, and we have daily conversations on whether this is the best environment to raise my 4 kids and to put them in school. I am not working full-time. I'm substitute teaching, and I don't do it for the pay, as I know almost every one of you do. I do it because I love the children. And the reason we are staying in Kent School District is because every one of these teachers and paras that have made my children love going to school every single day. But I'll tell you, from talking with them, you're not giving them a living wage. They could not afford a house in my neighborhood. They cannot afford an apartment in my neighborhood in Fairwood. The rent is $3,000 some dollars. They are not bringing home that money. They cannot afford to put food on their table. And I have to say, we can do better. And I'm telling you, okay, so you're saying it's only a select amount of us who are coming. I'm coming here personally, leaving my 4 children at home to tell you, us parents are talking. We want you to use this McCleary money to give the teachers the pay and the respect that they deserve. We have the money. It is not for a slush fund. It is not for rainy day. We want you to show it to our teachers. The fact that we've lost as many teachers as we have is appalling. Everybody else I talk to is like, don't move to Kent. Kent is a horrible school district. Everybody is saying, don't do it. And I'm saying, this has still got great heart. We have amazing teachers. We have so much potential for our children. I want you to help me make this a reality. I will fight with you. I will find money. I will fundraise. I will go to the state and ask for more money. But what I want you to do is I want you to help us make our teachers show how valuable you are. Let's meet in the middle. Let's give them that fair wage. We all know 3.1% is not a fair amount. They're not even basically getting basic meals at this point. They cannot eat out with their family. They aren't going on vacations. And the reason they're doing it is for our children. And if you're telling me from your mission is to advocate for students, tell me, are you advocating for students by doing the best for our teachers? Because that is our direct link. They're looking our students in the face every single day. And if you're having all of them get eaten up by other districts, then we're really doing a disservice to all of them. Because I'll tell you, I've watched way too many teachers. I go into my building right now at my elementary school, I don't even recognize half of the teachers. So please, I implore you, help us find a media. Thank you.
David Smith, followed by Jennifer Strand, then Maureen Debu Cahoon, and Angela Palo.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for letting us speak. Thank you, Dr. Watts. I'm David Smith. I live at 33203 206 Place Southeast, Auburn. It's a Sawyerwoods service area, and I had 2 kids go through the Kent School District. I'm also a teacher here in Kent. I work at Kent Phoenix Academy. Kind of what I've been hearing this evening is at the beginning we saw the presentation, we saw a bunch of numbers, and I heard the budget folks talking about maybe this is hard to understand. It's a lot of numbers, a lot of papers, a lot of spreadsheets. But what I keep hearing from all the speakers is that it's not about the dollars and how many columns and the change in the amount of money in each of the columns. It's about the people. It's not only about the educational support staff, the nutrition and food workers, the custodians, the certificated staff, the IAs, the office workers. It's about our kids and what is it that we're going to provide them by making choices with this particular budget. Will we be a AA, 3, or whatever bond rating, or are we going to have students who, by the time they get through K-12, have met the goals of our big plan? You know, are we going to are we going to successfully prepare them Some of the things that I think about are the ladies who work in our office at KPA. We have a lot of kids that are very high needs. We have 2 folks from the Kent Youth and Family Services counselors that are there pretty much full-time, and there isn't enough time to meet with all the kids and the needs that they have. This spring, I was greeted on multiple occasions, aid units and firemen and police because of kids threatening harm to themselves. If we have these important people like these ladies that are in the front office in our school, who are the front line in every one of these cases, if they're deciding they have to go off to another job, then it's going to be somebody new who doesn't know our kids who's going to be our front line. And we may end up losing some of those kids. And I don't mean they'll move out of the district. As a teacher at my school, I had the extreme privilege of being a part of a National Science Foundation grant, kind of combining Green River and our school and helping our kids recognize that there are a lot of great non-college careers they could pursue. Part of the National Science Foundation grant was funding for myself and another teacher to attend different conferences around the U.S. And because of choices that were made 4 years ago, we were denied to go to these conferences that we had agreed to by being a part of the grant. I receive a lot of ideas, new curriculum, contacts, people who can help me improve my curriculum and provide greater and better opportunities, especially in the manufacturing field for our students. Sure, it's just me not going to a grant or to a conference, no big deal, but who knows what I might have seen if I was there. Who knows what curriculum I might have brought. And that's one of the things we're losing by the budget problems that we have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer Stan.
Jennifer Strand.
Pardon me.
It's okay. Stand by me, it's okay. My name's Jennifer Strand. I live in Kent, just near Horizon. I came here today just because I wanted to support my group, and I got inspired to be part of the group. I moved out here 27 years ago. It was a mass exodus from Seattle School District. My son was starting kindergarten, and we want to be in the best school district. We came to Kent. I'm embarrassed to say that it's not what it used to be. I'm a paraeducator. I work at Meadow Ridge, and I'm in the preschool, and I work with some really small special needs guys, and they need us. And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of spirit to be there for them. And I feel that you're not seeing that part, that we're part of that. Making those kids go forward. I mean, we're their first lifeline. The 3.1% offer on the table, what that means to me is $401.76 a year. It means $33.48 a month. It means 59 cents a week. And it means 2 cents an hour. Can you live on 2 cents an hour raise? No. I can't. I have 3 kids that have gone through the Kent School District. I have 1 left to go, just 2 more years. Please, please help us. Do not vote this budget in. Please review. Thank you.
Hi there. I would first like to thank the Kent School District Board and Dr.
Would you please state your name, please?
Okay. Maureen DeBucahoon, and I'm a paraeducator. I live in the Kent 27523 139th Court, Southeast Kent. Okay, I would first like to thank the Kent School District Board and Dr. Watts for their time. My name is Maureen DeBoo-Cahoon, and I live in Kent and work at the Transition Outreach Program as a paraeducator. I love this community, and both of my sons went to school in Kent. I have worked as a para in the Kent School District for 12 years, and I am deeply proud of the work that I do. I'm here today because paraeducators collaborate daily with amazing certificated staff to help students access their education. We work often one-on-one with the most vulnerable students in Kent School District. We support students who are medically fragile, developmentally delayed, and intellectually disabled. Many paraeducators also work in general ed settings, in small group reading instruction and ELL support. I travel independently with students on public transit and provide supervision at community-based job sites as a job coach. The profound importance of diverse paraeducator roles in our district cannot be understated. I am here today because paraeducators cultivate critically important relationships with students. We get to know our students, making difficult texts, challenging math problems, and stressful social interactions less intimidating and more accessible. We open the door to learning for students who have never experienced success. We monitor our students' insulin numbers to prevent medical emergencies, assist with tube feeding, and celebrate along with our students when they use assistive technology to communicate for the first time in their lives. I have deep connection with students, and we have trusting partnerships because we work side by side every day, and these relationships matter. I'm here today because paraeducators are professionals and should be treated as such. We, like teachers, attend required continuing education courses to learn best practices and sharpen our skills. We are required to keep accurate data about our students' progress toward IEP goals and track students' medical information to keep them very safe. Based on information from OSPI, we may soon be required to maintain a state-mandated certification at our own expense. I have a unique role that I am a liaison for other paraeducators in my program. As an experienced professional, I mentor others to be better paraeducators and make the school environment warm and welcoming. This competency, my ability to successfully teach others, comes with experience and professional resilience. Kent School District should support this type of leadership development among paraeducators. So, what's the takeaway? Paraeducators are essential partners to teachers, supporting students who need it the most. We are the glue that holds our classrooms and school buildings together, and we are dedicated professionals with a vast institutional knowledge and leadership skills who should be compensated as professionals. Paraeducator pay caps out at 15 years with $19.28 per hour hourly wage. For special ed paras, $18.93. For general education paras. Most paraeducators make well under $25,000 per year. Our ask is simple. We want a professional wage for our professional occupation. We can lead the way in ending the nationwide shortage of paraeducators by providing adequate pay. It's time for paraeducators to make a living wage. Thank you.
Angela?
I thought I heard yes. Was
okay.
It? Yes?
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Melissa Whitehouse. I have 2 daughters in the Kent School District, and I'm also para and registered behavior tech for technician at TOP. I've seen firsthand how important it is to have dedicated, qualified, and committed paras in our schools. Stability is extremely important, especially for our most vulnerable students. Building these necessary relationships can be very difficult for students with disabilities. When staff are constantly changing, our most vulnerable students are impacted the greatest. When school staff stays the same, the school becomes a safe place to build relationships and flourish. It is important that we, as staff, build a good working rapport with our students. When we have good relationships and trust with our students, only then can we begin to move into the teaching stage. When we have high staff turnover rates, that equates to students getting to know new faces and new teaching styles. We then become stuck in the building a relationship stage, and the students lose the opportunity to get the education that they deserve. High turnover rates also mean more inexperienced paras in the classroom, which equates to more incident reports, more staff and student injuries, along with less academic progress for students. I've personally been involved in multiple crisis situations in our building this year. Had we not had the staff that we have that is qualified to do their jobs, somebody would have gotten hurt. We were able to keep that from happening. We already have a shortage of paras nationwide. It is our responsibility to attract and retain the most qualified paras for the sake of our students. I'm here tonight because I want to strongly encourage the board to ensure the McCleary money goes towards educator salaries. Using the money for its intended purpose will help ensure educators do not leave Kent School District to take similar skill but higher paying jobs in the districts that border us. Fair living wages will help us keep talent here in the Kent School District. All of our students deserve to have dedicated, qualified, and committed paras in their school. The only way this is going to happen is if you use the McCleary money to compensate us fairly and competitively. Thank you.
Okay, our final speaker before the budget hearing closes is Laura Drooler.
I actually don't have a lot to say because I think it's pretty clear. I'm Laura Drooler, and I teach at Covington Elementary, and I don't want a lot of Christmas cards from people I don't know, so I'm not going to say my address out loud, but you do have it on the card. I have a beautiful, fabulous daughter named Frances Rosalie, and we all believe that our child is the best, but mine really is. And if someone were to give me money and say, here, buy something nice for Frances, there's no way that I would say, sure, and then go pay my bills. And that's essentially what's happening. This is the gist of the McCleary funding. KSD has been given the money for teacher salaries. Instead, they want to pay their bills. Here's a question I haven't heard said all night long, so I hope it's fresh. What was the plan before the settlement? Because this is not meant to be a bailout. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, now the hearing is closed and the regular meeting will resume. We are up to 4.01, our resolution number 1546, 2018-19 budget adoption. I will ask for a motion to approve resolution number 1546, approving the district's 2018 budget.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any additional discussions, questions by the board?
Well, to be clear, we are putting through a budget that is fairly conservative compared to prior years. Focuses on outer years rather than short years. And I understand that we have a deadline of August 31st, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to approve this budget. And so if we are willing to put in the time, then we can do better work on the budget. Yeah!
Any other comments?
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
What's that?
Pardon?
Is that a vote? Are we voting?
No,
No.
are we asking any discussions?
No,
Or
no.
Debbie, in discussions, comments?
Just a point of clarification, Ben, we also have the ability to amend the budget as well. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I will call the resolution 2018-19, resolution number 1546, 2018-19 budget adoption. I would like to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 1546.
We've already made the motion. We're ready for vote.
Okay, I'd like to call for a vote, pardon me. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
No. All right.
Just to be clear, were there any ayes?
Nobody said anything.
Then we should have abstentions too. We should say.
Are you
abstain.
abstaining? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said no. but-
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. Two abstentions.
We can recount.
Karen and Debbie.
Vote again.
We recall the vote. Want to do it again?
All right, all those in favor say aye to resolution number 1546. All those opposed say no to resolution number 1546.
No.
No. All right, any abstentions?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Two abstentions, Debbie Strauss, Karen DeBruler, and 3 noes. Okay. All right, moving on to 4.02, Superintendent Contract. Okay, thank you. We have several cards here, so I will start with Kristen Pinter.
Just to be clear, we have public requesting comments on 4.02. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
We've closed our cards. Yes. We've closed all cards prior to the hearing. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Please.
All right, it'll be Kristen Pinters, followed by Leanne Struble, Christy Padilla, Shannon Hernandez.
We're going? Okay.
And Michelle Bettinger.
All right. I'm Kristen Pinter, 24432 224th Avenue, Southeast Maple Valley. I am a teacher in Kent School District. Thank you, board, for listening. The time to act responsibly is now. Think back to why you ran for office, for your position in the Kent School Board, who you voted for, who voted for you, your constituents, parents, teachers, community members, and Kent School District employees voted for you. They had the confidence in you to do the right thing and represent them and their needs and concerns. You have no obligation to Dr. Watts. If you feel you do, then perhaps it's time for you to step down because he didn't vote for you. Your constituents have spoken. Have you listened? Parents have voted no confidence in Dr. Watts, and Kent School District employees are asking you to give them a salary that shows you value them and what they do. By voting tonight on a budget that clearly does not use the McCleary money to appropriately and fairly compensate district employees, but fills a rainy day fund instead, tells your constituents that you aren't listening and don't care about them. By voting tonight to extend Dr. Watts' contract blatantly disregards the feelings and desires of your constituents. We teach our children right is right. Right is still right, even when it's the hard thing to do and no one else is doing it. I implore you to do the right thing tonight. Do not approve the budget and do not extend Dr. Watts' contract. Thank you.
Leanne Struble.
I am Leanne Struble. I live in the Fairwood neighborhood. I am a parent of a recent Kent Ridge High School graduate, yay, and a soon-to-graduate Kent Ridge High School student, yes, maybe. I'm not sure I want her to go on because her life goal is to be a teacher. Why? Because she had amazing teachers in the Kent School District. And they're gone. The people she wants to be left. They left to take a better job with more pay. They left because the feeling in the Kent School District went down. And the attitude and the feeling of a district starts at the top. And when it is this contentious, a change needs to be made, and you need to make it, and it's going to be hard. It is going to be so hard, and I get that. And the volunteer hours you put in, you are amazing for doing that. But now it's time to do the hard stuff. Each time I speak here, someone stops me and says, but Mrs. Struble, you have just 1 year left and all your kids are out of the school district. And my very kind friend says, they're just proud of you for getting your kids through school and getting them on to their next adventure. My not so kind friends say, yeah, they just want you to shut up. So here's something for you to take into account. I'm not going away. My daughter graduates this year from Kent Ridge High School. She's going on to get a degree in teaching, and I am going to fight every year she's in college to make Kent the best district in the world because I want her to come back. I want her to be a Kent School District teacher, and I want her to inspire the kids like she was inspired. So yes, I've got one more student. She'll graduate. No, I'm not going away. I am going to continue to hold you accountable to pay these people a fraction of what they are worth. Accountable to make sure that the first person you think about for every decision you make is the kindergartner who walks in the door of a Kent school and starts his journey to an education. Accountable to find out for those seniors as they place those caps on that day that you have done the best you can do for them, and you have fought hard to make sure they have had every advantage possible. The right thing. Time to pay what's necessary to keep the best teachers we've ever found. And time to put in leadership that inspires those people to come to Kent, to stay at Kent, and to teach and inspire our children.
Clarify that Ms. Struble was speaking of our budget hearing, and it was not labeled properly. So we have received the information regardless, and we are moving on to our comments for the Superintendent Contract 4.02 with Shannon Hernandez next.
Has it started?
Yes.
Shannon Jepson Hernandez, Mill Creek Middle School, Scenic Hill resident, mother, lived in Kent since 2001. I too, like many of these people, searched up on the internet many years ago what was the best school district to live in, and I came here because I wanted my biracial children to be raised in a community that embraced diversity and celebrated diversity, and that is why I've stayed here. It was stated at the beginning that the responsibilities of the board is to advocate for students as well as the appropriate use of monies. There's a political strategy used frequently where multiple problems are created to create distractions, so you can never quite resolve one situation before you move on to the next one. So as though I know this is no longer about budget and it's about the superintendent contract, I feel that there are so many unsettled matters that we have brought to the attention of this board since, February, January, and they're still unsettled. So please bear with me as I take you on this journey. The first thing I want to bring up is that point number 1 about advocating for students. So, what is the intended direction of KSD when it comes to SPED? I trust that the leadership of KSD would put that as a foremost priority. So why are we transitioning to provide legally required services for so many students to be provided out of the district? It was reported to me that 6 items alone on the consent agenda add up to $7 million. So when we propose a budget that says revenues go down and expenses go up, I would expect that answer. Because we're blowing $7 million by outsourcing services where we could save that money by hiring within the Kent School District and keeping SPED in-house. My son too has autism like many people, and the one person that left Mill Creek out of the 50% that left, that I cried for, was the case manager that was assigned to him. And now she's gone. My son's coming to my school, and I'm excited about that, but I'm terrified because I see the direction that the SPED program is going. Invest in SPED and stop the financial drain of litigation, which you lose consistently every time you go to court, and watch your budget improve. 8 months ago, I stood here and I questioned why we waste money on minimally effective vendor subscriptions, specifically ERDI affiliates. Yet, of all the KSD changes, this is the one that doesn't change. So why doesn't it change? Why won't we trust our teachers to teach? Why are we so married to vendors? I challenge the board to put their money on the teachers and stop believing in vendor services. Have the magical answer for Kent. Vendors don't have that magical answer. In fact, why not trust the will of the community and not extend the superintendent's contract? Show us Kent voters can count on you as representation. Don't let your proposal be the demise of your reputation as a public servant. Do not extend this contract.
Michelle Bettinger.
Hi, I'm Michelle Greenwood Bettinger. Thank you for doing the hard work on the budget. I know it's not comfortable. None of this is comfortable. I live in Fairwood area. My kids are going to both be at Kent Ridge, so thank you all the Kent Ridge teachers and all the Northwood teachers who they had before and the Ridgewood teachers. So I have a few thoughts on the proposed change to the contract language. So I need some help. These are rhetorical questions. I need some help understanding this more clearly. The more I think about it, the more I don't understand a couple things. Why change contract language prior to the investigation or resolution of all the outstanding 4312 complaints? One of them is mine. Doing it now gives the distinct impression that someone might believe there was, at the very least, the appearance of impropriety. Face it, if there wasn't something there, the language would not have been added, right? Given that assumption, why not change the language to read, no educational consulting of any kind will be allowed? If the superintendent did indeed violate the contract, then why reward that performance behavior by allowing the very same to happen, but only on weekends? My sarcasm is intended. Most businesses don't allow their employees to do any type of compensated work in the same industry. Why? Because it's a conflict of interest. If I violate my contract at work, there is a negative consequence for me. I must stop that behavior that led to the violation of contract in order to continue my employment if it wasn't considered a serious enough violation to terminate me. One thing I do not get is a reward. I do not get my contract rewritten so I can continue essentially the same performance behavior. I would also be put on a performance plan where my performance behavior was closely monitored for positive, tangible results. I keep seeing negative behavior rewarded while the students and teachers are punished. And that needs to stop. thank you very much for all your time. And I do also agree, thank you, board, for all the hours you put in, and I know it's hard.
All right, at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the 3-year superintendent contract for Dr. Calvin Watts, effective July 1st, 2017 through June 20th, 2021.
Also move.
Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, any discussions or questions?
So I know this is a result of previous discussions. In the past board is customary to put this extension through after the review. We took time, made changes. I understand those changes are approved, which is why it is in front of us today. But that was just when talking to us. So when we think that this contract does what we want it to do, I think that we need to stop and listen. And to the point of we're under no urgency to do this now, at least in my mind, we're not under urgency to approve this now. And we can take time to resolve any outstanding issues prior to making this vote.
Anyone else have comments?
So the contract, as I understand it, reads, so this addendum is giving additional information in regards to the contract. So what we're approving is the addendum to the contract. The contract language itself already had a clause in it that did the role. And so I feel like this addendum that we've done gives additional information on the information and things that we want to work on together as a team.
So I have a question as well. So we are not voting on the extension of the contract, correct? We're voting on the addendum. Well,
Typically, we're voting on the 1-year extension, current contract.
no, we're
goes
not,
through
because it already,
2020.
no, we're not.
Correct.
So I just want to clarify, we're not voting on the contract extension because it has already, it was part of the previous contract.
Yeah.
So we're not voting on the contract extension. We're voting on the addendum.
Right.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, because I think that's an important piece.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Any other discussions? I do have something to say, so all done? All right. I do want to say that this is common practice to give our superintendent a 3-year contract for them to adequately plan for the district, and the board had conferred, and we agreed with the legal counsel in arriving at this extension. And I want to add that while our inquiry of the superintendent and the complainants have been recently completed, we are scheduling a meeting to put together a statement of next steps and recommendations that we're taking to complete the inquiry process as per the 4312 policy procedures. So at this time, we will not be sharing those steps as we have not yet met as a board. And verbiage in the contract provides for the necessary action should the superintendent be in violation of any professional responsibilities. So with that in mind, I will be approving the contract this evening.
A question.
The addendum. The addendum.
The addendum, sorry.
With this, could we table this to the next session? With a motion that's seconded and approved. Is that within our realm of possibility?
There's a pending motion, so you'll need to vote on the motion first.
So we vote on the motion and then we open another motion. Okay. All right. So I would like to call for a vote. All those in favor of 4.02 superintendent contract, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
All right, motion passes, but now we're going to, is there a motion to place?
We have one abstention.
Oh, one abstention.
I abstained.
Okay. Do you have that, Carol? Okay, thank you. All right. Now, do we have a motion to table 4.02 Superintendent Contract?
Because it passed with the majority.
How do we? All right. Okay, we're up to 5.0 consent agenda. I'd like to ask for the board to pull an agenda item from discussion, please. All right. I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Can I ask that the audience, we still have business to conduct, so if you could quiet down, please. Thank you.
All right, we have 6.0, the Board of Directors informational. 6.01, our May 2018 financial statement and June 2018 financial statement. Anybody have any questions, comments?
No.
Oh, no.
All right, our 7.0 communication from the audience is, there's one more left, and that is Christy Padilla. Please.
I'm unclear if I need to say my address, or is that something you pressed? Okay, so I am Christy Padilla. I live at 25718 201st Avenue, Southeast Kent, 98042. Dr. Watts, President Vangadala, so I'm so sorry. I even practiced. And members of the board, I have been asked to speak to you today on behalf of KEA members. Members have asked me to tell you what we want, which is why it would have been helpful to speak during the budget, and I apologize that I goofed. What we wanted was for you to recess and reevaluate the budget, and so you read our minds, and I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Moving forward, as you reconsider the budget, another request that we have is that you make school-based employees and their students a priority. There is an overused saying that, show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. We saw tonight where the priority for the McCleary money that WA members won in Olympia, or awarded in Olympia, is going towards the ending fund balance, or the rainy day fund. It's not going towards Dr. Watt's 27,000 children. It's not going to the employees who teach or those who support those who teach. We really do need to stop saying that if we're not going to back it up with our actions, because it then feels disrespectful. It's simply not true the way we are conducting business as of now. We are at a critical juncture. You have the power and the ability to let the healing begin. You can also make a decision to make things worse than they are now. And I keep thinking we hit bottom, and then one more thing happens, and I see that we are not at bottom yet. So I'm requesting that you really, really evaluate your priorities. When schools are a priority, NSOC funds are not frozen. Teachers and administrators are not laid off. And a 3.1 cap isn't announced in public before bargaining dates for our 10 or 11 labor unions. Their contracts are not negotiated. I had to find out, watching a video, that the district priority was a 3.1 cap. It seems to me it would have been a better way to handle if I at least knew that was coming, or our other presidents would have known at least that was coming. We can't do interest-based bargaining when we find out on a video what your interests are. So what I'm asking is that actions speak louder than words. Keep Dr. Watts' 27,000 children and those who teach a priority in your budget. Thank you.
That concludes our communication from the audience, and we are up to legislative update. Director Hardy.
Thank you. Well, there's not much new from the legislative front, other than the last time we talked about many of our legislatures were going to primaries. All the incumbents won their primaries. Kind of based on the, I don't want to get into the political, kind of based on kind of we're doing a good job, let's keep doing it. So as we talked before about what are our priorities, working with our legislatures and telling them what is important to us is the new job of what we do as a district. I know I'm working with WASDA, and they're setting their legislative priorities as well. And moving forward, that will, in most cases, we might have the same legislatures, and so working with the same people as they win their election and as we go into the long session next year. It's very short. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, we are up to the superintendent report. Dr. Watts, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Vengadaslam, members of the board, Ms. Halley, community members, friends, staff. Three things I want to touch on tonight. One is August 15th, 16th. I appreciate those school board directors who were able to attend our school-based and district office leader administrative retreat held at Kent Meridian on August 15th, 16th. The purpose of that retreat was first and foremost to make connections with one another, to learn about the priorities and initiatives that are associated with Kent School District as we move this district forward, to receive organizational updates from each one of our 4 communities, formerly known as divisions, including teaching and learning, school operations, academic support, organizational effectiveness, and human resources. We shared leadership stories. We established what we now know as common ground by answering simple questions until 2 separate individuals chose the same answer. I want to thank our administrative leadership staff, thank our school board directors for attending, thank our KM interim principal, David Radford, for hosting, and to Kathy Landowski, our newest Director of Teacher and Leadership Development, and a cast of what I refer to as superheroes across the organization. Those obviously who are here this evening who were not at that event, superheroes, those whose superpowers include listening, leading, learning, and drawing connections between what I would call seemingly unrelated events. Those superheroes that focus on teaching and learning for those 2 days of learning. I'd also like to thank our community members from Communities and Schools of Kent, the 6th annual Fill the Bus school supply that was held at Kent Station recently, that same Thursday, the 16th. We unpacked school supplies thanks to our communications office and our team members here at the central office, and to those who donated what I would call essential tools, those toolkits for our students so that they can be successful academically, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally during the instructional day. I want to thank you to all of our communities, and schools of Kent, staff members including Angela Stave, David De La Fuente, one of our community members, Dee Clem, Don Gregory from Kent Rotary, as we helped unload those school supplies and load them on the bus for our families and our Team KSD members who were able to attend. We thank you for your continued support. And finally, I'd like to just to remind each and every one of us who've, I appreciate the comments, particularly about teaching and supporting those who teach. And what I will say is that when we are all working together, when we are all what I would call respectfully interacting, challenging ideas, understanding that we may not always agree, but we do so agreeably. I am proud, KSD proud in fact, to announce that our four-year cohort graduation rate for 17-18 increased from 78% a year prior to 82%. That increase over this past year is certainly contributed and attributed to an emphasis on teaching and learning, thanks to our teachers, to our support staff, our paraeducators, our administrators, our families, and certainly our students for helping us to move ever closer to what our mission says, successfully preparing all students for their futures. And until all means each and every, our mission is not complete. I will add that it is the highest four-year graduation rate, cohort graduation rate that Kent School District has experienced since 2011-2012. Proud of those efforts, not yet finished. Look forward to supporting our students and their learning and achievement. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
Give them a round. That's right.
Am I starting? Okay. All right. So again, I want to start by thanking everyone that showed up. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate what you do for our students and our families and our staff. And I hope you've had an enjoyable summer, as I know that possibly comes to an end very quickly. I know it does for me. So I am excited to get my fifth child off to college. He will be at Central, and he is actually interested in he's going to be in the music education program. So he wants to teach music, so I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited about that, the first of mine that want to be a teacher. And it's been a very busy summer, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I just want to say that I wish you all well as we begin this upcoming school year. Again, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you. I'm excited about, reuniting with the girls that I mentor at Kentwood, and I've got, all of my kids are in high school now, so I've got a freshman going to high school, so excited about that. But I wish you all well, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I also hope you had a good summer. I know it's going to be a quick start, hopefully, to the school year. And I hope that it goes really well for you and all of our students. I went to the leadership retreat for part of the time. I had to go take care of my grandson after that, but I really enjoyed the part that I was there, and it was really interesting to really get to know some of the people who were there. I have one of my mentees is a graduate of Washington Youth Academy. She's going back to KPA for her last semester. And what we've been doing this summer, I've been having lunch with her every once a week. And we went to a college campus, took her to a college campus, and I'd planned on doing that yesterday, but she had to take care of her little sister, so that got put off till next week. But we've done a bunch of things, including shopping for Fill the Bus. We went to Staples and had her do some math. If we buy the paper folders at 25 cents for 30, and we get 25 for 35 cents of the plastic folders, what's the better deal? Anyway, and then we brought the supplies here and left them in the foyer, and then they were taken down to the bus. So we enjoyed that. And that's all I've got.
All right. Well, actually debated this a lot, but I'd like to start off with an apology to my board members, Dr. Watts, Ms. Halley, and the executive team for my multiple absences over the past 2 months at all of our meetings. I have had multiple conflicts that required me to be not here and not available, and that likely and most likely contributed to many of my discussions and actions tonight. But whether you're looking forward to it or not, I've returned and I'm here to do the work that is necessary. And so as I did in June, I'm looking forward to working with each of you on superintendent performance goals, hearing from the strategic steering committee, working on our board goals, fiscal recovery task force, and everything that we have promised to do, and now getting our budget in the place it needs to be. So, thank you.
So, couple things. One is the Kent Schools Foundation does have their first annual fundraiser coming up on September 15th. The foundation is looking for people to attend. We've got lots of great prizes and things that we'll be auctioning off. So if you're interested, please look up Kent Schools Foundation. We are online, and it should be a great event for everyone to attend. I also want to thank people for being here. I know we've got a lot of work ahead of us as a board and as a team that we're planning on doing this year. And I just personally want to thank those who did put a lot of work into the budget. I know we've got some work still to do, but I do appreciate the work that you've done. So please don't take our action tonight as us not appreciating that. And I hope that our school year gets off to a good start next week. So thank you.
All right. And I guess I just want to acknowledge all the emails we've received in appreciation of our teachers. I just want to say I have not responded to many of them, but we are all reading them, and we didn't feel it was appropriate to just send you a canned response as we've done. And you've written an impassioned plea about the teachers, and so we just want to acknowledge that. And so also want to mention, as you've seen in our consent agenda, we had numerous meetings over the summer, and so we are taking very seriously the job that's ahead of us, and we have the first time in a long time developed a calendar that incorporates not only the monitoring of our strategic plans and goals and metrics, but also Dr. Watt's evaluation, which will be done on a regular basis. It's always been done once a year. Policy review of all of the reviews, the policies that we have not reviewed, we're putting that into almost every week we'll be meeting to catch up on our policies, strategic goals monitoring, and our communication plan, which we are working in close connection with our district's communication plan. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and the budget certainly is also the forefront. And I want to apologize for not conducting the meeting as properly as I would have liked to, and but I appreciate all of you coming, and I appreciate the time you've given to the issues that really matter to you. And thank you so much, and I hope you have a great start of the school year. I hope all of us have a great start of the school year. Thank you. Have a good evening. We're adjourned. Thank you.